After a week off, due to some Mother Nature inclement weather, we were back here at the Johnston Rec Center for week 2 in the 3rd week of the season, so we're all messed up. And the games reflected it. We had teams hanging with teams that I guess, we didn't think, according to the podcast. Tyler Cruz, now you know what he looks like, one of the guys on the podcast. We'll let him break some stuff down along with Mike and Jared and Greg, you know him. And I'm Joey. The names are the hardest part. So now that we're past that, the Week 2 postgame show, no sponsor. Let me know if you want a sponsor. Overtime game, first overtime game of the new season. Werewolves take down the Halfway Crooks for the first time ever. 2-0 last season. I'll never let them forget it. That's their first win against the Halfway Crooks. But overtime, fouled on a 3 late, forced overtime. So, you could argue the Werewolves maybe should have won in regulation. Both teams played a good game in that one. Overtime, they scored more points. That's how you win in overtime. But what did the Werewolves do throughout the game to be in that position to win in regulation?
Well, the first thing that the Werewolves did was blow a ginormous lead. They were up like 21-3 at first, and then you guys, the Halfway Crooks, crawled back. And I think at the end of the game, they hit their free throws. And that's what sealed it. They were able to hit their free throws almost every time they went to the line, and that got them points while the clock was still running a little bit, and they came out victorious, especially in overtime.
Number 20, Heston, came up big for them, too, with 32 points and 10 rebounds.
Double-double for him.
Yeah.
And I know Gino Forti hit some big threes, and you guys can touch on some of the... so that was the Werewolves' plan. I mean, the players that had to step up, stepped up. They had some other guys hitting shots to keep the floor space for Heston and Gino to do things that they like to do. What did the Halfway Crooks do to battle back? You're right, down nearly 20 very early, and then by halftime, that was gone.
I thought you guys played excellent defense, especially on the interior. You weren't letting any easy buckets. They basically had to score strictly from 3, and they got a little cold mid-game, and I think that's what allowed the Halfway Crooks to slide right back in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, once they got off to that hot start, it seems like you guys started making subs more rapidly to try and keep up with their stamina. They started missing. You guys started hitting some shots, and they just crawl right back in.
It's usually how things go, right?
Yeah.
That's like the recipe.
Like that,
if you could write it up, make and miss, and you turn those misses into makes. Anything?
No, not really. I mean, it was just like a momentum game, kind of. Whoever had momentum kind of had the edge at that time.
Game of runs for sure.
Yeah.
And very fitting to go into overtime.
I think this game actually showed that Jared has some ice in his veins.
Yeah,
hitting those
Hansen really helped
free
push
throws.
into the overtime.
He was saying as he was leaving, he's going for the free throw record.
Yeah, 12 for 13
percentage. So
92%.
that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Prestige Worldwide squeaks by the Wild Hogs.
That was a great game.
Great game.
Shocker, though.
Shocker. Okay,
Shocker.
there we go. So why was it shocking for the Wild Hogs? Now, to be fair, Michael Bandieri was not here last week, was definitely here this week, made his presence known. But what did the Wild Hogs as a team? Because when you add someone like that who handles the ball a lot, you notice when they're here, when they're not. Okay, so I think that's fair. But what did the rest of the team do around him to help complement his game?
Throughout the game, they were just playing a lot better team defense. They're moving the ball a lot better, controlling the rebounds. Overall, just working together a lot better than they were last week, especially with the addition of Mike here and number 4. Can't really remember his name, but Joey Coro. He came up big with a few blocks, and he was controlling the paint all game.
I thought Mike came with a ton of energy this week, and his team definitely reflected that because they looked like a completely different Wild Hog squad out here against Prestige Worldwide, who's one of the better teams in this league, in my opinion.
And they improved to 2-0, and Wild Hogs still 0-2, winless. So Halfway Crooks as well. So, everybody will play everyone, so that helps limit who can go win this, right?
Who's going to be the big baller brand of this year?
Greg, we'll have you start with this one. Let's keep it on the court you were on. You saw Boom Shakalaka, right? Average Joe's. That was only an 11-point game. A lot of close games. I think teams are starting to figure out how to play in this league, and they're figuring out their own teams, but also the pace and style of this league, and that combination is creating for some tighter games. Boom Shakalaka by 11, improved to 2-0. They're missing some of their key guys.
Yeah, Ryan Barnsley was out. And
sure, yes.
Matt Kamara, I mean, he was building a brick house out there. He just could not hit, and I know it's like every time he shot it would go in and out. So I don't know if it was necessarily him completely missing. It wasn't falling for him. Lucas Martin hit 4 straight threes in the middle of the game. He just could not miss. He was a key part of why they won. And then Average Joe's came out. They played well, too, on both sides of the ball. On offense, they moved the ball. And towards the end of the game, they made a bit of a run. But they didn't do enough to come back.
Yeah, I think the Average Joe showed a lot of heart tonight. When they were down, they didn't get on each other. Some teams get mad at each other and start to fall apart. They kind of came together and tried to make a couple good runs, especially late in the game, but they just fell up a little short. And like he said, Lucas Martin was huge for them. He hits a lot of outside shots. He's a really crafty ball handler too. He gets so low, it's so hard to steal the ball from him.
Yeah, and once he crosses the half-court line, too, you have to guard him because he was just draining threes from Trae Young range.
He'll be one of those players that when they win a close game, he'll be the one you point to, like they got, Mark Belbo hitting shots, they got Ryan Ronsley doing things, but it was Lucas. And he's like the X factor, a very good, definition of what an X factor is. Not talked about a lot, impacts the games. Saying he impacts them quietly isn't fair because he scores, he handles.
We gotta yell it.
Right.
He impacts the game.
No, but yes, very well done. But his play isn't quiet, even though at times he isn't talked about.
Honestly, he kind of reminds me of Eddie House a little bit from the Celtics back.
All he needs is the socks.
Yeah, he just comes off the bench and comes in and hits like a bunch of big shots, high energy guy. And
You don't expect it too. He's a little guy.
His impact is definitely felt right away.
And in what we thought would be one of the premier matchups, Green Squad and Swish Kebabs, both 1-0. Swish Kebabs get the win, improved to 2-0. And 78-71, that was a 20-point game.
At one point.
At one
Right.
point,
That
yeah.
was crazy.
Was cut into. So let's start with Green Squad. What did they do to cut into that lead? And then you can kind of go into the Swish Kebabs winning.
Green Squad started a little rattled. They had a couple players showing up late. They had a couple extracurricular things going on. But when they found their groove, when Cody Crawford started hitting shots, when the ball started moving around, you could tell it looked like the Green Squad that completely blew up the Werewolves last week. You could tell they looked like the same team. At the beginning of the game, it was kind of hard to get going. They weren't on the same page. But towards the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth, that's when they really picked it up, and that's when the lead went from 20 to 7.
Anything else?
I didn't really get to see that game. I was on the other court. I heard a lot about it, though.
Well, yeah, definitely a high-intensity game. Those are two teams that we expect to see in the playoffs. Again, hopefully that would be a very fun matchup because of the length, the talent, the high-flying ability from those two teams. Any last thoughts about this week? A whole bunch of close games. We could start down there. And, from what you saw, obviously Mike also played, but what do you take away?
I feel like there's no one really big standout team like the Alliance in last season. I think this season's a lot closer, and I think the talent group is a lot closer together. So I think there's going to be a lot of games that are really close this year.
Agreed.
Yeah, I completely stole the words right out of my mouth. There's no one team that completely blows everybody out of the water. I think everything's kind of be close.
Going off of what they said, the competition just seems to be really picking up, especially in week 2, a lot more intense.
The level that we saw teams in week 1, they're trying to feel themselves out. They're how to do things, and we're starting to see them get in a groove and what teams do well.
More.
Right?
Yeah.
This team does this team does that, and they're playing to their strengths.
Yeah, I think just to kind of cap it off is that with all this competition, I think it leads for a lot more upsets. Last season with only 6 teams, and you can kind of tell which teams are good and which weren't. So you didn't really have many upsets, but I think this season, and we saw today, there were some close games, and maybe we didn't think it was going to be close, but it can just all change depending on week to week.
For sure, definitely got to bring it every week. And I said that a lot last year, but it wasn't as true. And from both leagues now, Connecticut and Rhode Island, I mean, they're getting to the point where you may be the favorite. You don't hit shots, you don't come to play. A team can beat you, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes the wins feel better when you actually get a win, because it is so hard to come by. Good. Well done.
My heart was broken this
Well
Valentine's Day.
done. I know. What a
That's all I can
Valentine's
say.
Day. An overtime thriller, just stomping on the hearts of the halfway crooks.
Hey, a lot of good basketball played tonight.
Agreed. That'll be it for the Week 2 post-game show. We'll be back here in a week, hopefully. I don't see any snow on the horizon.
Hopefully
which
not
is
anymore.
It is New England, though,
It
so
is-
you never know.
You never know. But we'll see you on Wednesday, as always, for Week 3. For the crew, I'm Joey. Stay tuned to the site, thelegacyleagues.com, player pages, team stats now. Schedule has box scores of every game. These guys are writing wonderful recap articles. And we also have highlights, top plays, power rankings, our lovely podcast, The Low Post. I like it. So stay tuned for that later in the week. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.